Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk facts.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick.
Playing on the car ride, play it when you lounge. X and O, you know that we can hold it down. Shout out to my man Sammy, got it off the ground. And to all the listeners tuned in right now, got debates, analysis, and speculation. This is sports talk for the new generation. You know where to find us, got a reputation. Sick podcast, your #1 sports destination.
Giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick.
S-I-C-K, it's the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk back. S-I-C-K, 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 S-I-C-K,
All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick.
S-I-C-K, it's the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk facts.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick.
Playing on the car ride, play it when you lounge. X and O, you know that we can hold it down. Shout out to my man Sammy, got it off the ground. And to all the listeners tuned in right now, got debates, analysis, and speculation. This is sports talk for the new generation. You know where to find us, got a reputation. Sick podcast, your #1 sports destination.
Giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick.
S-I-C-K, it's the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk back. S-I-C-K, 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 S-I-C-K.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to The Sick Podcast. With Tony Marinaro.
55 seconds left in the penalty, a minute and 27 seconds left in regulation time. Boston 4, Montreal 3. Lafleur coming out rather gingerly on the right side. He gives it into Lemaire, back to Lafleur. Oh!
The sickest Montreal Canadiens podcast.
You're in the fall!
Sports entertainment like no other.
Rejoint, on lui fait perdre la rondelle, une passe devant. Et c'est le dégagement et ce sera la victoire des Canadiens. Coupe Stanley pour les Canadiens. Le 23e de l'histoire.
You found the dogs! John, you found the dogs! He found the dogs! And all together, they worked a young team to the top. And now, a 24th Stanley Cup banner will hang from the rafters of the famous Forum in Montreal. The Canadiens win the Stanley Cup.
Brought to you by Energy Transportation Group. Driven to be different. La Bittt. Embrace your true nature. And Playground, your premier gaming destination. It's gonna be sick.
Welcome. You're watching on this Tuesday night, June 25th. Listen carefully. In all transparency, this podcast that you're watching right now was recorded on Monday, June 24th, right before Game 7, the final game of the Stanley Cup Final between the Edmonton Oilers and the Florida Panthers. So while you're watching this, you already know who won the Stanley Cup because it was played on Monday night, but I do not. So why am I recording right now to play it right now? Because we are on our way to Vegas. And the Vegas trip, I'm going to tell you right now, the direct flights sold out very, very quickly a long time ago. It's a very popular weekend in Vegas. Why? On Thursday night, the NHL awards. On Friday night, the 2024 NHL draft. On Saturday, the NHL draft day 2 from rounds 2 to 7. Also, the Copa America is playing in Las Vegas. And there are a couple of games, one on Wednesday between Ecuador and Jamaica, and another one on Friday between Brazil and Paraguay. Also, UFC 303 is playing, in which Conor McGregor was supposed to be part of the main event, but unfortunately, he pulled out because of injury. So Conor's not fighting, but there is going to be a big UFC event on Saturday night. Not to mention all the other amazing events, concerts, musicals, everything, you name it, that happen in Vegas. It's a very popular weekend in Vegas. So the direct flights sold out right away. So Tuesday for us, the sick team, very unfortunately, is pretty much an entire day of travel to get there. It's a little bit of a nightmare, but we are going. And we want to thank Betway for coming through and Betway for presenting you with our NHL draft coverage of 2024. And 3 sick podcasts will take place from there. Obviously, mine, the sick podcast with Tony Marinaro, the Recruits Draftcast podcast with Grant McCagg and Shane Gaumont. Shane will be in Vegas. And the sick podcast, The Eye Test with Pierre Maguire and Jimmy Murphy. Jimmy will be in Vegas. Brought to you by Betway, a leading global online betting and gaming brand. Follow your gut instinct. Go with Betway. Go on Betway.com or scan the QR code to join the action. Must be 18 and over and play responsibly. We also want to thank our partners and our sponsors, starting with Energy Transportation Group, once again recognized as one of Canada's top fleet employers for the 4th consecutive year. The prestigious accolade underscores their steadfast dedication to fostering a workplace of excellence and opportunity, much in part to their exceptional team for their unwavering commitment and contribution. Energy Transportation Group, they're a top fleet employer. Also brought to you in part by Bittt at Tibi. They launched their new Ultra Lager, a refreshing, thirst-quenching beer, perfect for the hot summer days with only 90 calories. A lager, I believe they call it, right? 2 grams of carbs and 4% ABV per can, available in pack of 6 and 12 in grocery and C-stores all around the province of Quebec. Ultra light, ultra refreshing. And brought to you in part by Playground, which I'm going to talk to you about later on. Without further ado, though, I want to bring in a gentleman who worked at TVA Sports for, I think, a good part of about 11 years, has done some work with the Quebec Major. I call them still the Junior Hockey League, but it's the Maritime League, whatever it is, and has done some work with the CHL, all of that in this past season. He is one of the hosts of La Relève podcast. Marty, Therriault, how are you?
Really appreciated to be there with you, Tony. And first and foremost, I'm really glad to just talk NHL prospect, talk about the NHL draft. That's always a pleasure for me.
Mais c'est moi qui apprécie beaucoup. I very much appreciate it. Thank you for making time for me. You've done like pretty incredible work. You have a weekly podcast. It goes on pretty much the entire season. You watch a ton of games because you do some work for junior hockey. You do some work for CHL. You have access to Instat. You can watch all the games. You can watch all the highlights. You can focus in on every single shift of every single player. Not to mention you watch games live. Not to mention you watch games on TV. How many games via video, live, TV, hours would you say you scouted games and or players in the past year?
That's a really good question, Tony. I'm used to watching so much hockey that it's pretty impossible to count a number of hours. But I can tell you probably per day I will probably watch around 2 or 3 players per day. And if I have the chance, I will try to watch maybe 2 or at least 1 game per day. But maybe sometimes I can go from 2 or 3 games. So I'm just really passionate. I'm just passionate about hockey. And that's just a pleasure for me. That's not a burden for me.
Good for you. You came out with your top 64 for La Relève podcast. Shane Gaumont, if you can bring it up, I'd like to have it up here on the screen so everyone can see that. Look at this. La Relève, their top 64, their top 2 rounds. Celebrini, Demidov at 2, Dickinson at 3, Perek at 4, Cayden Lindstrom at 5, Ziv Buyam at 6, Berkeley Captain at 7, T. Jagilla at 8, Beckett Seneca at 9, Consta Helenius at 10, Cole Iserman at 11. This is a little bit of a surprise. Look at this. Lev Shunov, who some have as their first defenseman in the draft. You have several defensemen ahead of him. You have Dickinson, you have Perek, you have Bium, and Lev Shunov is your 4th defenseman in the draft. And Yakimchuk, Solberg, Nygaard, Sileyev at 16. Wow. We've been told that he actually met twice with the Canadiens. Sileyev did. Luchenko, Basha Ritchie, Michael Hage, Sasha Boisvert at 21, Shershinov at 22, Yerichek 23, Baudouin at 24, Greentree 25, Surin 26, Parasak 27, Trevor Connolly at 28, Vanaker 29, Massey 30, Howe 31, and Hemming 32. That is your top 32. I will get to 33 to 64 a little bit later on. So you have Ivan Demidov as the number 2 player in the draft. Talk to me about why. We're going to skip number 1. Everyone knows about Celebrini. Why is Demidov, in your opinion, the number 2 player in the draft? What does he have that the tier below him doesn't have?
That's pretty interesting, Tony, because people who used to know me knows that I'm a little bit. Usually, I'm a little bit scary about Russian player because of not necessarily the Russian factors, but more about the development by Russian teams. I've always been scared about not being able to do some development with some players that you draft in those leagues. So I have always been very carefully, especially in the top 32, for it rank 33 to 64. That's another case. I don't have any problem with that. But
by the way, Marty, if I can, pardon me, rightfully so, because we saw what happened with Demidov this year. He wanted to stay in the KHL. His team knowing that, you know what, he was going to play this year and next year, and then he wants to go to the NHL. They said, you know what, kid? You're going to the MHL. He tore up the league in the season. He tore up the league in the playoffs as well. He's not happy about playing the season in the MHL. And he actually said the other day at Dan Milstein's combine with a translator there next to him, he said, well, it is what it is. He wasn't happy about it. And a lot of people are looking at Demidov saying, if Demidov stays 1 more year in Russia, the way he has a contract to stay 1 more year, who's to say that his team in the KHL won't say 1 more year in the MHL? And if they do, that's a wasted development year.
Oh, yeah, that can be really really scary for this development. But at the same time, it's just 1 year. If he's able to come to North America in 2025, that's a little bit better. Then I will give you an example. Daniela Yurov, who's a Minnesota Wild prospect, and that's a little bit late about him coming in North America. But for coming back to Ivan Demidov, obviously I think he's the most skilled player of the NHL draft. He has so silky hands. He's so creative. He's able to create offense about nothing. He has a great shot too, and I think his hockey IQ is really developed. He is really, really good. He's able to see the heights, to see the plays 2 or 3 seconds in advance in comparison to everybody else on the ice. But if I want to compare him to Matvei Michkov, who is probably about to join the Philadelphia Flyers in the next couple of days, I think he's a much harder working player. He's much. He will be much better on the back check. He's more better with his effort. I think he's a better skater too. So I'm much more convinced than Ivan Demidov can be a really good player, an impactful player in the league, an elite player like Tony Panarin or Kirill Kaprizov. So I'm really confident he can be good, and we just saw him. We just saw him this year.
So by the time people are watching this podcast, which is going to be on Tuesday night, give or take, let's say about 10:15 p.m. Eastern or so, they'll already have known that this went down. But you and I, what I'm going to talk to you about right now is going down as we speak, because you and I are recording once again on Monday night, just prior to the Florida Panthers and the Edmonton Oilers. And I can tell you that Linus Ullmark has been traded from the Boston Bruins to the Ottawa Senators. So it's done, and we're just waiting to hear what the return is in just a minute. And even before we find out, I'm going to say this. The National Hockey League, you get it all wrong over and over and over again. Allow teams to speak, but you should not be allowing teams to make trades before Friday's draft day, because trades only makes even more of a buzz, more hype, and the draft more exciting. You don't get it. You never have. You probably never will. And that's why Game 7 of the Stanley Cup Final was played on June 24th, when people should be having an ice cream already. It's about 25 days now. The last game of the National Hockey League Stanley Cup playoffs, where the cup comes out at the very latest, should be on May 31st. That and trades should only be able to be announced as of draft day. They don't get it. That's okay. I digress. Sam Dickinson at number 3. Dickinson was great in the playoffs. Levshunov was the guy that most people were talking about before the playoffs. Even Zane Parekh and his offensive abilities, a lot of people were talking about him, but his playoffs didn't quite live up to the potential. Was it Dickinson's playoffs that propelled him into the number 3 spot for you?
Well, I think he just answered some question I had about him during all the year. First and foremost, I've always been a really big fan of Sam Dickinson about his skating. He's a really good, smooth skater. He's really fast. He's able to carry the puck through the 3 zones. He's really, really impressive. I think he's a more creative player than some people can talk to. I think he's really good offensively. But the main issue I had with him during the regular season was more about his defensive play. Not that he's not good in his D-zone coverage. That's not a matter of that. But that was more a matter of he was much more confident in his own power. He tried to carry the puck, even if he has 1 or 2 opponent around him, and then he lost the puck. He creates some turnovers, and you have some scoring chance on the opponent side. So I was just a little bit scared about that. That's why he was 9th on my mid-season ranking. But in the playoff, and I found it really interesting. He doesn't have a really good first round against Flint. And I think Delonter just put in, he started the playoffs on the first pairing, and he's just he's just been placed to the second pairing because probably Hunter was not really satisfied. So he just be able to improve some other things to bring his game more simple, to just break out the puck, to be really more simple. And then in the second round against Kitchener, he's been really more useful. He's played a more simple style of play, and we just saw that at the Memorial Cup. He was incredible. He was able to be better and better despite the pressure against on his shoulders. And for me, the playoffs, that's the best part of the year. That's the most important part of the year. That's really important for me. And from what I saw from him during all the seasons, I'm pretty much more confident than when he will be in the NHL, and especially in the playoff, in a Stanley Cup final, by example. I think he will be able to be even better than he is during the regular season.
You talked about Dale Hunter. You brought up his name on a couple of occasions. Did this help, in your opinion, Dickinson's stock, that London is known for doing extremely good work with their young players?
Yeah, for sure. That's a really good advantage that Dickinson can have, because he has a former NHLer. He has a really well-experienced coach who can teach him basically everything. And if you're going back to the past NHL draft, that's pretty interesting, because you have always so much more London Knights prospect who are drafted maybe later than expected. They can be maybe a third or fourth rounders. And the best example is probably Easton Cowan last year. He was maybe projected second or 3 round pick, and finally the Toronto Maple Leafs drafted him. And everybody was surprised, myself included. He was drafted really, really early. And finally, Easton Cowan just being able to improve so much. If I compare him to last year, and you saw him this year, he had a 42-point streak. It was incredible. He was probably the best player in the CHL this year. And so for sure, that can be a really good advantage for Dickinson, to just be able to learn about Dale Hunter, who's a really, really well-respected coach.
Zane Parek's known as an offensive defenseman. Does he remind you more of an Erik Karlsson or a Brent Burns, or neither?
He's probably more an Erik Karlsson type of player. I think he has the potential to be even better defensively. And if I need to resume his season, at the beginning of the season, his defensive play was horrible. He was all over the place. He was too much more confident. He took so much risk, and there were so many turnovers. I could not have. If he will not improve, I will certainly not take the chance to put him fourth on my list. But he's been able to improve a lot. His stick-to-stick play was even better. He was even better to control the gap defensively. It was really good. And then if he's able to do that, I think he has a little bit of physical play. He needs to add some weight to his game for sure. But I think he has a little desire to be physical, to include him in the skin of opponents. I think he has a quality for that. And then if you bring that to his offensive game, his hockey IQ is off the chart. He's so smart. He's able to make plays out of nothing. He skates really well. He has a really good breakout. He's a monster on power play. I think he has really the potential offensively to be maybe not a Cale Makar type of player, but I think he has the potential to be in the Adam Fox, Quinn Hughes, some players like that in those types of defensemen. Because if you want to be an elite defenseman, you need to have an elite hockey IQ, and that's what I see with Zane Parek.
Cayden Lindstrom has scared off some because of a back injury. He's tried to reassure everyone, and you know what? All the medical records are there for whoever wants to see it. He says that he's a gym rat and he trains 5-6 times a week very, very intensely. But once again, a guy that was unanimous to probably be the third forward selected in the draft is no longer unanimous to be the third forward in the draft. But you have him as your third forward in the draft. At the end of the day, is the package of 6'4", 210 plus pounds, plus the fact that he's a centerman, was that just too much for you to overlook?
Yeah, for sure. I think every NHL team want to have a 6'4" who can skate really well, who's really physical. When you saw him, when you see Cayden Lindstrom play, he's really physical. He's able to hit really hard. So I think it's not really fun to play against Cayden Lindstrom. That's a great quality that you want to have in your first or second center in your lineup, and especially he's creative too. He's able to make plays out of nothing. He has a great wrister. He's had a great one-timer. So I think he's able to produce some offense. He's maybe not the most smart player. Maybe he lacks some hockey IQ if I compare him to Berkeley Catton, for example. But I think he's able to be good defensively too, and that's good information, Tony. He played centers only since he's 16, so I think you need to learn how to play in the three zones, and I think that he will just be able to develop on his. In the injury matter, I will not necessarily be worried. I will try to trust the health staff. Because if you have some doctors, you hired some doctors for a reason. That to be able to analyze some report, to be analyzed is a medical status. And from what we heard on numerous media, I think that was Corey Proman from the Athletic. He told that doctors from around the NHL were more optimistic about his health than it was last month. So I will just prefer to trust my doctors, and if they told me that there is no problem for him to be healthy for the beginning of the next season, I will certainly pick him because his quality is pretty rare.
Zeev Buium at the Frozen Four, his Denver beat in the final an incredible machine that was Boston College. He was so good in the Frozen Four that a lot of people said he is the most complete defenseman in the draft. But you have him as your third defenseman going out. What can you tell me about his game?
I think maybe he's not the most complete player. I think I prefer Dickinson on this topic, but I love Zeev Buium. You talk about the Frozen Four. That's pretty uncommon to have a defenseman who has not been drafted yet, like Zeev Buium, and to be able to not only win the national championship, but to be the best defensive scorer in the entire NCAA. He's been able to play in Denver. For those who doesn't necessarily know the NCAA, he played on the division who's called the NCHC. The style of play reminds me so much about the NHL. You have a lot of pace. You have a lot of execution. That's really physical. I think that's a division where the style of play is really translatable to the NHL. Though that's even more impressive to see what Zeev Buium has been able to do, and especially in this team in Denver. He has his brother Shai, who is a Detroit Red Wing prospect. He's much older than him. He's much more big than him, and that's Buium who had the number one defenseman responsibilities. You have Sean Barons, who is a Colorado Avalanche prospect. He's really good with the puck. He's really offensive. And despite this fact, that was Buium who had the main responsibilities. He's really good with the puck. He's really mobile. He's really agile, and he's able to dig some players really well. He has a lot of confidence. He will be able to carry the puck and really try to dig some opponents, and he also won the World Junior. So he's a winner. He's a really good defensive, and yes, he have all the potential to be a number one defenseman. He has a tendency to make some turnovers, but I think that's not a big question mark for him because he's so much talented offensively. That's not a problem.
You have Berkeley Catton at number 7 on your list for La Relève podcast in your top 64. You have him at number 7, which is, closer to the top 5 than probably any other list that I've seen from anybody out there, which would make sense if you look at his points and you look at his highlights. I mean, this guy does things with the puck that are absolutely unbelievable. When we talk about top 3 or 4 overall talents in the draft, he's in that discussion. But because he's not overly big, and because he plays in the WHL, which carries less weight, he's dropped on several people's lists. Why didn't he drop on your list? You have him at a very, very respectable number 7.
I think when it comes to smaller players, you need to check 2 things from my perspective. You need to check if he's fast enough to be able to create some separation about the bigger player. And Berkeley Catton is a really, really fast player. He doesn't have any problem to be able to skate. And he's able to dig the puck despite the fact that he's skating. I certainly don't want to compare it to Connor McDavid, but McDavid has his great quality to be able to dig when he skates. That's the same thing for Berkeley Catton. And second, is he smart enough to be able to roll the hits, to be able to give him so much more space to be able to make some plays? And I think when it comes to Berkeley Catton, he's certainly one of the, if not the smartest player on this NHL draft. He's always at the right place. He's always able to support his players, to really move the puck really well in the offensive zone. In the defensive zone, too, I think he's really responsible. That's not perfect, but I think he can improve that over the next couple of years. So when you have a Tredman, I'm pretty sure that he will be a great offensive-minded player. And honestly, if he was bigger, Tony, I will probably put him 4th or 5th. But I just was a little bit prudent because he's not bigger. So, but I love him really, really much. He's really creative. He has a really good shot too, and he's fast. So I think that's what you want from an NHL player.
Tisha Ginla at number 8. I love this playoffs.
Yeah, he was really good. And what was interesting about Tisha Ginla is he's been able to improve his game so much more during the year. When he began the year, I saw maybe a player who can be really good in a 200 foot. Was especially good on the physical side. Was able to have some success defensively. He needs to add more consistency, but at least you are able to see that he knows how to play defensively. That's not a concern for me. But then during the last year, he was able to create much and more offense. He was able to shoot the puck even more. He has a really good shot. He has a really good wrister. So he's really, really incredible on this topic. And then he's been able to add a lot more of creativity. He was able to dig some opponents really well. He was really, really creative, and that's at this moment that I began to put him higher and higher in my list. And obviously, when you're the Jerome McGinley's son, you basically been raised in an NHL locker room. That's a big advantage that he has over probably everybody in this class.
You're right. It's like being a son of Keith Tkachuk.
Mm-hmm.
It's the same thing. We saw how much it's helped Matthew and how much it's helped Brady, right? They're from that environment.
And that's pretty funny, Tony, because I had Matthew Tkachuk in 2016 4th. I remember some people were not necessarily agree with this ranking, and finally look at what he's able to do on the NHL because he's the Keith Tkachuk son. I think that gives him some advantage, but I think Tij is in the same category. For having the chance to meet him at the CHL Top Prospect in Moncton in January. On a competitive size in the professionalism side, he's basically the same. He's incredible. That's incredible to see how much he's a professional. He's a pro at 17 years old. That will be pretty easy to doesn't have a lot of maturity, but he was incredible, and that's why I'm really, really confident that he can be a really good NHL player. And I think it was on your podcast. Craig Button was also really optimistic. I think he has him third on this list. And when you're talking about Craig Button, who has the chance to draft him, and he told that he reminds him so much about Jerome McGinley, I think that tells a lot.
Yeah, you're right about that. 2 years ago, Beckett Seneca was a 5'10" winger, right-handed shot. He looked over at his parents. His mom is 6 foot tall. His dad's 6'3", and he said, "Am I adopted or what? Why am I so short?" 2 years later, he's almost 6'4", and he probably hasn't finished growing yet. This is an incredible package of hands and size, skill and everything. And I know a lot of Canadiens fans are looking at him, and no one really has them in their top 5, but they're almost like, man, should we take this guy at 5, even though he's 9, 10, 11, 12 on some lists? Obviously, you like him a lot. He makes your top 10.
Oh, yeah, I like him a lot. That's not because he's 9 that doesn't like him at the same level than Cayden Lindstrom or Zeev Bouillon. I'm a pretty big fan. And I will be honest, if I'm being honest, Tony, I began to love him basically at the beginning of the year. Last year when he was with Oshawa, you could see he was talented offensively. You can see he has some hands and he has some IQs. But when I first began to rewatching him somewhere around October or of November, I was really impressed. I was just like, ooh, he's just bigger and bigger, and he has the same kind of hands. He's fast, and he's able to be much more physical. There were some consistency in his effort, but other than that, he was really offensive. He had a great shot, and I was just like, okay, I just watched his stats, and that just was not correlate with his style of play. So I just said, okay, I will be patient. I will just see how much he can be improved if he is able to have some statistics on his play. And then he arrived in the playoff, and he was just tremendous. He was, I think, the best player for Oshawa. He was even better than Callum Ritchie, who was a first rounder for the Colorado Avalanche. He was big. He improved in consistency. He was much more intense. He was able to dig everybody like it was nothing. He did some really good highlight reel goals. And then when you saw that, he had a lot of energy too. And then when you saw that, you can just say if he can improve his defensive play, I think that's maybe the only issue with him. But other than that, all the tools to be great superstars in the NHL. Mm-hmm.
We talked to you before because this podcast was pre-recorded on Monday, June 24th, prior to the Panthers and the Edmonton Oilers dropping the puck in Game 7. Because for us on the Sick Podcast, Tuesday is an entire day of travel as we are on our way to Vegas. So we'll be doing shows live from Vegas on Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. All right. The Senators make it official. They've acquired goalie Linus Ullmark from the Boston Bruins in exchange for the Bruins' original first-round pick in 2024, which is the 25th pick overall, center Mark Kastelik, and goalie Joonas Korpisalo. And the Senators will retain 25% of Korpisalo's remaining salary. There is no extension in place for Ullmark. So once again, Ullmark to Ottawa, to Boston, 25th pick overall in this draft, center Mark Kastelik and goalie Joonas Korpisalo. All right. I think Bruins fans were hoping for a greater return than that because at one point they asked for Shane Pinto and the Ottawa Senators said thanks, but no thanks. Anyway, the deal is done. Back to your top 64 picks. Consta Helenius, Craig Button at one point had him at number 3 on his list, and I think he dipped a little bit, but he's still in the top 7 or 8, I believe. What can you tell me about him?
I really like him a lot. I know some draft experts maybe has him a little bit lower than I have, but I think maybe he's not the biggest player. He's 5'11". I think that's maybe the only concern with him, but he's really he's a hard-working player. He's really smart too, and he's able to play center. When you are able to dominate as much as he can in the Liga, the Finnish Hockey League, against some NHL alumni, that's pretty impressive. That's really good, and I've been able to see that he's really. He works really hard, but he's just not working really hard. He's really creative too. He's smart. He's able to support his teammates a lot. He's able to shoot the puck. He's able to play the bumper in the power play, and he's able to move really well. So when it comes to hockey IQ, I said it earlier. I think when you played in the NHL, the player who are able to surprise a lot of people are players who are smart. You just need to see Nick Suzuki in Montreal. I think that's the same thing. And Konstantinos has this quality. He's able to be good at a professional level already. So I don't have a doubt about him. And it looks to me like he has some Sebastian Aho in his style of play. That's why he's 10, and that's what I like. I like him a lot. That was much more. That was less convincing in the his international play. He was not particularly good at the World Junior or the U18. But I'm not necessarily worried, because I think he didn't have the right teammates to succeed. And he works really hard. He's able to make some plays. He's really creative. He's shifty too. He's able to move really well. So I think that's a great quality for him.
Why did Lev Shunov slip, dip, whatever you want to call it, drop on your list? There's so many scouts thinking that he's probably going to go top 3.
I think he's just her bet. He's for sure. He's a top 4 defenseman in the NHL. That's not a question about that. But I love the 11 players that I have of him. I think they all has the potential to be a really good player, even maybe a first line or a first pairing defenseman in the National Hockey League. So. And I think that's probably why I put Lev Shunov lower than some hasn't. The main issue with Lev Shunov, I think it comes to 2 matters. First of all, I think when he's put under pressure, he has a tendency to panic a lot. He throws the puck basically everywhere. And I think. Yeah. He's more risk prone to create some turnovers and then to give some scoring opportunities to the other teams. And the second things, I think, his playoffs, from my perspective, were not really good. I think just at the beginning of the year, I saw him play against some university who were not necessarily powerhouses. A university like Ferris State or Lake Superior State. That's not bad university. They are able to play in the NCAA tournament, but he was really good. He didn't have any problem with his defense. He was really, really incredible offensively. He was able to move the puck really well. He has a great shot. He was able to skate really well. He was physical too. But I've been able to watch him play against Michigan and again Minnesota in the Big Ten division, and then I found that it was much harder for him. He struggled a little bit to be able to play under pressure, and that's what it scared me maybe a little bit. So that's why he's 11. That's not that he's not a good player, but I'm not really convinced that he can be a first pairing type of player. I think he's much more a second pairing who is really good offensively, but who will maybe cost you some goals because his defensively is not as good as you want.
The SIG podcast brought to you in part by Playground Summer Million, the must-play poker event of the season, featuring 15 championship ring events, $1 million in guaranteed prize pools, with a $500,000 guaranteed main event. Playground Summer Million Poker Series, June 20th to July 1st. Visit playground.ca for details. All right, okay. I want to tell you that in 2 days from now is a very, very big day for Mecha Moto. They're a Moto Guzzi Piaggio and Vespa dealer. They've been around for 100 years. JF, their owner, has been there as their owner for the last 10 years. And on Thursday, June 27, they're having an all-day open house. You could pop in all day long and do road tests. Mecha Moto is at 4398 de la Roche, mechamoto.ca. One or two more questions for you. Here's one. Out of everyone that's on your list, in your top 64, let's say that logic prevails and your top 25 is their top 25 and they're gone. And the Canadiens have the 26th pick overall in the draft. Who should they be eyeing out of everyone that you have between 25 and 30?
First of all, I'm pretty convinced that I will be able to draft a player that I have a little bit higher. So that's the first thing. I think if it comes to player, obviously at 26, and I think he won't be there. But Trevor Connolly is a pretty interesting player at this rank, and I'm really not the biggest fan. I have some
reservations.
Issues. I have some issues with his individualistic style of play. He's not the best teammate, I think. But maybe that's a great choice. I think Igor Sharin at 26 on my list could be a really good pick too. He's really intense. He hits so hard, and he's be able to improve his game a lot. He's creative. He's good defensively, and that was probably my pick.
I know Grant McCagg said before of recruits.ca and the Recruits Draftcast podcast, he said that should the Canadiens be able to land the Demidov at 5, for example, that he would love his countrymate Surin to be the Canadiens' second pick at 26, because having a countrymate makes the adaptation and the transfer over all that much easier. Now, I'm going to say this. My opinion can change between now and Friday. But right now, I'm thinking Demidov is going to go 2. I just think Demidov will go 2 to Chicago as of now. But my opinion could change between now and Friday. So we'll have to wait and see on that. Also, the Canadiens sent this out 3 or 4 days ago. It's over for Jean-François Houle, who had signed an extension with the Canadiens last week. And then all of a sudden, boom, it's over. But because there was an opportunity presented by Clarkson University, his alma mater, and they contacted him and said, hey, are you interested? He said, listen, I just signed a contract extension with the Laval Rocket. Yeah, but if we got the Canadiens to give us permission to talk to you, would you be interested? Well, you know what? Talk to them. And then he came out and said that the opportunity to go coach at his alma mater was just way too great for him, and he decided to take it. Anyway, I think deep down inside, if he knew that he was going to be the heir apparent to Marty St. Louis one day, that he probably wouldn't have taken it, but I don't think that he thought that he was going to be. So we wish Jean-François Houle, but the reason why I bring this up is for someone who does a lot of work in the Quebec Major Junior Hockey League and CHL, who do you think would be a good coach for the Laval Rocket?
I think
or the coach.
Obviously, we have no choice but to think about Pascal Vincent, who just recently been fired by the Columbus Blue Jackets. He's available. He has a ton of experience in the AHL. That will probably be the first choice. But I will probably think about Sylvain Favreau in Drummondville. He just won the Gilles Courteau Trophy with Drummondville. It was incredible for having the chance to talk with him during the last couple of years for my job at the CHL, but also with the podcast Le Relève, we had the chance to talk with him. He's a great. He has a great mind. He's really smart. He's a really modern style coach. He's really prepared. He's really on the psychological side of the game. And I think when it comes to Kent Hughes, Jeff Gorton, and his staff, that's really important for him. That's a modern style of hockey. So I think probably Sylvain Favreau will be a great fit for Ken Hughes. And first and foremost, when it comes to QMJHL coach, you can maybe think about some people who are not really good with English, I will say. But Sylvain Favreau is from the Ottawa area. He's from Orléans, so he's a really good bilingual coach. He has a ton of experience. So if I will have $2 to bet, I will probably put in it on Sylvain Favreau because he has exactly the kind of philosophy that the Montreal Canadiens has currently.
Martin Therriault worked at TVA Sport for about 11 years. Martin Therriault works for does work for the Quebec Major Junior Hockey League. Martin Therriault does work for the CHL. Martin Therriault is a host of La Relève podcast, which is once per week. This guy does his homework. He's informed, and his English is better than my French. You just had a chance to see it. Merci beaucoup pour ton temps. I very much appreciate it. The first time for you on the Sick Podcast, and I hope you're going to join me again going forward in the very near future.
That's a real pleasure. That's an honor, Tony. I'm really, really glad to be there, to be here with you tonight. And that's certainly you just need to call me back, and I will be there for sure.
Merci beaucoup, mon chum. J'apprécie. C'est très apprécié. There you have it. Martin Therriault, the guy his friends call Marty. Once again, special thanks to Energy Transportation Group. Special thanks to Bittt Tibi. Special thanks to Playground. And a shout out to Mecha Moto. And also, once again, our NHL Draft Coverage 2024 live from Vegas on Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday for 3 podcasts. Mine, the Sick Podcast with Tony Marinaro, the Recruits Draftcast Podcast with Grant McCagg and Shane Gaumont. Shane will be in Vegas. The Sick Podcast, The Eye Test with Pierre Maguire and Jimmy Murphy. Jimmy will be in Vegas. Brought to you by Betway, a leading global online betting and gaming brand. Follow your gut instinct. Go with Betway. Go on Betway.com or scan the QR code to join the action. Must be 18 and over and play responsibly. We'll be back tomorrow night live from Vegas with several days of NHL Draft 2024 coverage on the Sick Podcast. Thank you all for watching. If you like it, share it with your friends. Comment Sick, S-I-C-K. Leave us a 5-star review on Apple. It's our way of feeling the love. For Shane Gaumont and Master Control, I'm Marinaro.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Sick Podcast with Tony Marinaro on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts. The Sick Podcast is brought to you by Energy Transportation Group, driven to be different. LaVie.tv. Embrace your true nature. And Playground, your premier gaming destination.